Hi, everyone. Welcome to the panel. Great to have you here. We're going to talk about the future of AI development and how to embed AI in every application. My name is Elad Ziklik. I'm the VP of Product Management for Oracle's AI Services and Data Science, and I will be the moderator for today's panel. And I'm joined by a great lineup of panelists who I will just go ahead and ask to introduce yourselves. Miranda, go ahead.
I'm Miranda Nash. I'm a VP of Product Management and Strategy for AI applications.
Suhas?
Hi, Elad. My name is Suhas Oliar. I'm the VP for Product Management for the Digital Assistant, which is our conversational AI and integration.
And Mark?
Hello, I'm Mark Hornick, Senior Director of Oracle Machine Learning Product Management, located in the Boston area. And my focus is scalable and automated in-database machine learning on the cloud and on premises. So we're providing machine learning visual interfaces and APIs, including support for SQL, R, Python, and REST, and new AutoML capabilities.
And lastly, Ian?
Hi, my name is Ian Wilson. I'm the Director of Engineering for the Intelligence Suite team within NetSuite. Our group helps teams across the NetSuite organization put AI and ML into their features.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining me. So the first question is, AI is becoming more and more mainstream. Customers are getting used to interacting with AI in their everyday life, things like Alexa or Siri or Google Now, and are starting to expect the same from the business applications. So how do you see AI being integrated in your business? Miranda, let's start with you.
Absolutely, Elad. So, we work with customers of our horizontal cloud apps, where the user personas are like recruiters, HR business partners, or accounts payable professionals, service agents. And, these users aren't looking for innovation for its own sake. They just want our apps to help them do their jobs more efficiently with higher quality. So our own application development teams here at Oracle know that data science-driven decisions, when you build them into the apps, can increase the level of automation and insight. So for example, an AP professional can process exceptions rather than basic transactions. And I think, it's really these non-flashy uses of AI behind the scenes that'll deliver real value.
Awesome. Ian, what about NetSuite? How do you bring AI into NetSuite?
We're looking at each of the feature teams. NetSuite is obviously a very broad platform with a lot of different features. Each of our teams is looking at intelligence in each of those different areas and looking at how they can make the user's experience better through automation, cleaner workflows, less sophisticated processes. And they're doing this in a variety of different ways, leveraging technologies that exist or looking at building custom solutions. And our team is looking to help them through training, building frameworks and data products so that they can actually deliver their solutions to our customers in a very efficient way.
Thanks. Suhas, can you share a bit about your experience with the digital assistant platform at Oracle?
Sure, Elad. You mentioned that as consumers, we are interacting with Alexa, Siri, Google in our daily lives, and we are seeing the same effect and adoption of conversational AI in the enterprise, while the adoption of chatbots in the business that we refer to as digital assistant. Over the last 4 years, we are seeing a hockey stick trajectory in the adoption of chatbot technologies that began with consumer self-service in the customer service space across multiple verticals. And now we're seeing an increased adoption within the enterprise for types like employee self-service across HR, IT, sales, finance functions, and so on and so forth. Now, core to the digital assistant is the latest deep learning AI stack for language processing and speech analysis and response. And that's sort of the critical aspect that makes AI easily consumable within the enterprise.
Thanks. So two different questions, like customers do seem to expect their AI to run everywhere in their homes, in their cars, and definitely in the business applications. Like, how do you see this evolve in the near future? Like, Mark, you own bringing AI and machine learning to the Oracle database. Like, how do you see the database evolve in this space?
Well, thanks, Elad. So some may not know, but Oracle actually pioneered tightly integrating machine learning with the relational database. And from the outset, we targeted scalability by eliminating data movement and designing parallel algorithms, as well as streamlining model deployment and reducing complexity. So for more than 2 decades, Oracle has enabled applications and dashboards to build and integrate models and make predictions just as easily as writing queries. But over this time, we've expanded into open source languages, first with R and now with Python. So we not only expose the in-database algorithms through R and Python APIs, but also enable native R and Python syntax and functions to manipulate database data, leveraging the database as this high-performance compute engine. Now, Oracle's Converge database is further expanding to support automatic machine learning through our Python interface and a no-code AutoML UI. This increases data scientists' productivity by eliminating repetitive and time-consuming tasks, while at the same time making machine learning accessible to non-experts for solving key business problems. On the deployment side, we're introducing OML services, which is a REST interface supporting model management and deployment. The integration of OML services and the AutoML UI makes deployment of models possible in just a few clicks.
Thanks. And Miranda, what about like Fusion, like SaaS apps like Fusion encompass so many scenarios, so many business applications? Like how will you get AI running inside Fusion?
Yeah, well, we're taking advantage of all the great tools from the database that Mark's talked about and that Elad, your team is developing as well. And that's part of it. Another key part of our strategy is piggybacking on the new user experience that we're bringing to all Oracle applications. So anyone who has known Oracle might have noticed the new themes we call it Redwood, that are all around every way Oracle presents itself to the world. And this is now infusing all of our enterprise applications. And as part of that, fundamental is behind the scenes AI powering every list view, every text entry box behind the scenes. It might appear sort of like a browser side MRU, but in fact, we can do much better than that with behind this, because we know the user context, we know what users like this have done in other similar situations. And so we're really taking advantage of this change in user experience to make AI pervasive in the apps.
So like, I think one other observation is that like, why is AI so difficult to use? Like it's been around for a decade, 2 decades, maybe even more, but still there's a lot of challenges. Like, so why is it that AI is still so difficult to implement for most enterprises and developers? Like Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really great AI techniques and tools and lots of different SaaS services that are coming out onto the market that are providing out-of-the-box solutions for AI. But I think what you have to look at is what is feeding those AI models and what's feeding those AI algorithms, and that's data. And Oracle's been in the data game for years, and I still think organizations a lot of the times look at their data and they go, we have great data, but a lot of times that's just transactional data and it doesn't actually feed very well into these AI models. And so a lot of time needs to be spent on looking at the data and assessing the data and making sure that you have the right amount of data, the right context of the data, and the right meaning of that data, so that you can feed it into these AI models, and then they actually spit out results that are very useful for your business. But and then the last part of that is model serving and monitoring. And once you actually build these models, is getting them up and deployed. I think a lot of time we spend in that middle piece with the data science, and that's where it gets the flash, but we sort of ignore the side pieces.
So as you do this with the Oracle Digital Assistant, building like platforms for developers to go and use this, like where are the challenges?
I think Ian was spot on about the data, but from my experience with the past 4 years in the space, I also believe that there's this unrealistic expectation that AI is the pixie dust and will solve all problems, right? Anytime you go talk to any CXO, they say, oh yeah, we'll do this in AI, but they don't really truly understand what the problem is. So it begins with the definition of the problem, and then as Ian mentioned, having the right data. So a lot of focus today is on algorithms and the different sort of models that are available and the services available. But I truly believe that data is a new programming language. That is, you begin to control the AI model by controlling its training data. And most enterprise and developers do not have access to enough and the right annotated or labeled data, which is really what is really making AI difficult today.
Yeah, I really agree. I think one of the biggest challenges we're seeing is like, how do we get access to data? How do you get permissions to use the data? And how do you make sure that this data actually represents the real world? Because it's one of the toughest scenarios. Things work in the lab for the first customer or the second customer, and then the other 100 or 1,000 end up looking a little bit different. So, yeah.
And if I may just add to that, right, that's what makes Oracle, being an Oracle really exciting, because as Ian mentioned, we have data over the last 40 years. Plus, as Miranda mentioned, we have the depth and breadth of applications across the spectrum that nobody else has. So that's really makes it exciting for us in this AI space to sort of really deliver what the enterprise needs.
Mark, what do you think from coming at it from the database standpoint? Like, what are the challenges that you see like developers and users having when they come to apply AI to the problems?
I certainly agree with the points that have been made so far, and I just would add, perhaps a few other key challenges. One being scalability, ease of deployment, and skill set. My team works with enterprise customers across the globe, and customers frequently cite the challenges of working with large volume data and the complexity of putting solutions into production. Unfortunately, many tools supporting data preparation and exploration and modeling, both open source and proprietary, simply don't scale to enterprise data volumes. And this can result in the need to move data to external servers or the inability to build models on that data. So for example, if they require all the data to be in memory, either the data may not fit or there isn't enough memory left over to do anything else. And as a result, solutions that seemed promising in the lab simply fail when faced with production data. Oracle Machine Learning's in-database architecture and parallel algorithm implementations avoid these pitfalls. On the deployment side, however, developers need an easy way to invoke models and get back predictions. The OML SQL interface fits well with traditional applications that already interface with databases. Others will choose REST interfaces for greater flexibility. Today, with OML, users have both options when deploying models in production. The last challenge I'll cite is the demand for data professionals skilled in AI and ML. As I mentioned earlier, AutoML has a significant role to play, not only for data scientists' productivity, but also to enable non-experts to explore their data and develop solutions. And this doesn't say that AutoML is going to replace data scientists anytime soon. On the contrary, some of the biggest challenges occur outside the modeling activity, including business problem specification and data preparation. But AutoML is a powerful enabler.
Thanks. Good insights. So, we all work for Oracle, either CI or in the SaaS world and some other departments, NetSuite database. What do you guys think is the role of the major cloud providers in this space? How do we, as Oracle or other cloud providers, help developers, help business users to use AI in their experiences? What is Oracle going to do in this space? Miranda, how does Fusion think about enabling AI for its users?
You're right. There are different strategies in different parts of Oracle and different ways to approach a problem. We look at really focusing on the as a service part of the statement, because we're enabling data science as a service behind the scenes so that our customers really aren't even aware of it, right? Because our customers in Fusion are business users. Now, so for many companies delivering AI to their own users inside their company, they have to bear what we think of as the tax for doing data science, which is, look, data changes, business changes. Something might happen like a pandemic that completely changes your expense patterns, right? And this throws off all your past modeling. Well, in the way we do this within Oracle applications is that the data science is behind the scenes. And so we're tweaking models where we need to, where, for example, we use AutoML in the first line of defense to adapt to changes automatically. That's not always possible. So we have data scientists that are able to make those adjustments. And we think of that as kind of the tax for solutions based on data. And again, part of the strategy of Oracle applications is to bear that tax and deliver these solutions truly as a service.
Thanks, makes a lot of sense. Like, so what about ODA? Like, how does ODA make it easier for developers? What is our role in enabling AI for developers?
So, we built the Oracle Digital Assistant as a platform for developers, ground up, cloud native on OCI, right? So we approached it from the cloud perspective because the amount of infrastructure required, the constant updates, and also the business changes, as Miranda mentioned, can be severely impacting customers. So we took the approach of building this first cloud native, low code, and enabling customers to sort of build conversational AI using the Oracle Digital Assistant. Now, furthermore, Oracle also has applications, and as we know, it's all about the data, and it's about making sure that your models are trained with specific domain data. And so what we've provided is not only the platform that allows you to build conversational AI from scratch, or build your chatbots, your skills from scratch, but you can also start using templates that the Oracle application teams have built with over 40 years plus experience in ERP and SCM and HCM and so on and so forth, to have those starting points from which they can expand, right? Now, we also have our own sort of speech engine that we designed for the enterprise, because from the enterprise perspective, it's very clear to make sure that we are compliant with GDPR and PII requirements, as well as, there's a lot of very domain-specific vocabulary that you need to be able to understand. And this could either be at a horizontal level or a very specific vertical level. And we enable this in the cloud for our customers to be able to scale and be able to modify that. So that's sort of the approach that we took in the Clouding Lab.
I'm 100% agreement with you. Like, I think the future of AI is all about domain-specific AI, vertical AI, horizontal AI, about building blocks that are actually better at what they're doing than just general purpose building blocks we're seeing today, and actually solve specific business problem based on data that either you bring in or that the cloud vendors like Oracle brought in. And actually, Oracle, I think, is perfectly positioned to do that, because we're the only vendor that not only has a general purpose cloud platform, but also world leader in all the various SaaS applications across all the domains that you mentioned. So I think we're uniquely positioned to go and make AI useful by actually bringing the data that we've been collecting over the last 20, 30, 40 years and building machine learning models using that will solve real business problems. I want to bring the discussion full circle and ask you all, like, what do you see as the most interesting untapped opportunities for AI and machine learning for the next, say, 12 or 24 months? Mark, let's start with you.
Well, we know that enterprises have a wealth of data at their disposal. We've got data about customers, their social media, IoT sensors, just to name a few. However, enterprises don't just want to manage that data. They need to extract value that can help their businesses and customers. The key then is to democratize machine learning across the enterprise, make it more accessible and readily usable by more individuals, and further, easily integrate with enterprise applications and dashboards. So if we talk about untapped opportunities, consider all the Oracle database and autonomous database customers who use Oracle to manage their data today, but also have immediate access to powerful machine learning in their converged Oracle databases. Combine that with new technologies like AutoML that enable even non-experts to derive insights, and I see a tremendous opportunity for enterprises to leverage this powerful technology.
Awesome, thanks. Ian, what about NetSuite? What's the biggest opportunities for AI for NetSuite?
Well, obviously, we have a long roadmap that we want to develop features and then put intelligence into our product. I'm not here to sort of give any secrets away yet, but we're working with obviously OCI Cloud and looking at all the AI services that are being put in there and seeing how we can accelerate our roadmap leveraging the OCI AI services as well as the data science platform. As Mark talked about, the AutoML. That's something that we're looking at on how do we integrate that into our platform for our own developers and possibly exposing that for our platform developers, our suite script. There's a bunch of stuff that we're sort of playing around with, and there's a lot of ideas where we want to give our engineers the most capability and the most flexibility within their development, and that's exposing all these tools and assets to them because we do have this sweetness within the NetSuite environment where we have data from a large number of different areas, and we can bring that together and provide different insights that you normally wouldn't get.
Yep, I actually agree. I think for technology to be truly pervasive, as you folks mentioned, like it needs to become truly invisible. And I think AI is not yet there. You have to be, unfortunately, painfully aware about the journey of applying AI to solve a business problem, whether as a developer or a data scientist or an operations, a data engineer. And I think this is the biggest opportunity, finding the paths and the ways where we can actually make AI invisible, just solve a problem, just like in autonomous driving or whatnot, where it knows about your scenarios, it understands your domain, just solves your business problems, so you don't have to worry about it and work so hard to actually bring AI to your business. So thanks. As we close out our panel, I want to leave without asking like the million-dollar question, like, what is, in your minds, the one thing that every developer should be doing when it comes to AI or machine learning? Mark, let's start with you.
If you're a developer, I'd recommend you learn about machine learning concepts, processes, and techniques, and what the different algorithms are used for. This will better prepare you to collaborate with the data science teams in your organization. And also, if you or your company are using Oracle Database or Autonomous Database, check out Oracle Machine Learning and get started with it today. It's immediately available.
Awesome. Miranda, what do you think?
I'd say what I say to my own teams here internally, which is to use the opportunity of these new technologies to think differently about the user experience. In making your applications AI driven, they can become an active participant, not a passive responder to inputs. And this is a completely new way to think about how you can add value for your users.
Ian, any parting words?
Yeah, I think developers should really think about being data first in their development approach if they're ever thinking about or considering AI or ML as part of their application. Start thinking about what problems you may want to solve in the future and how you can start to prepare for them now, collecting, categorizing, storing that data, and don't forget about the legal bit because everybody forgets about that.
And Suas, any final words from you?
Well, Ian said it. It's clearly understand, define the use case, understand the data. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you look at the next gen AI, we can deploy a lot of interesting techniques like transfer learning to reduce compute data requirements by several orders of magnitude, from weeks or months on a HPC cluster running on OCI to minutes on a CPU, and from terabytes to a dozen training examples. So my whole view is that the approach needs to be simple and flexible enough to allow developers to focus on their specific business use cases, their specific data, yet still exploit the knowledge extracted from web-scale pre-trained models.
Yep, I would agree. My 2 cents would be not focus on case algorithms which solves the problem or very, very low and happen once in a blue moon, and focus on everything else, the use case, the end-to-end life cycle. How do you manage this thing once it's built? I think that is the harder part than picking a specific algorithm for most business cases. Awesome. I want to thank you all for joining me, Mark, Miranda, Ian, Suas. Thank you so much for spending time with us.